Today I'm going to walk you through what I call the scorched earth approach to reducing your taxes and explain why so many people have so many misconceptions about how to reduce your taxes offshore. I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, where we helped everyone from multiple billionaires and celebrities to everyday 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors like yourself who want to legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And one of the big ways to go where you're treated best is to be able to choose your tax rate anywhere in the world. If you're an American, a U.S. citizen, or U.S. green card holder, this is a bit more difficult, but yet whether it's Puerto Rico or offshore, there are ways to legally reduce your tax rate to as low as 0 in some cases, and certainly into the single digits or low double digits. It's possible, even for Americans, to go where you're treated best and to keep more of your own money. For everybody else, the field is much more open. But today I want to talk about what I call the scorched earth approach to legally reducing your taxes, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there about how to get out of your country's tax net. As we mentioned, a U.S. citizen is always in the tax net until they renounce their citizenship. They have the ability to use exclusions and exemptions and other structures to reduce that tax bill. But how do you cut your ties with your country? I think what a lot of people think is, I'll go and take a vacation overseas. People have asked me over the years, hey, can I just go overseas for like 2 or 3 years? Maybe I'll summer in my summer house somewhere else. How much time do I need to be out of the country? And this speaks to the fact that if you want to reduce your taxes overseas, there's going to be some kind of substantial change. This is not an issue where you're just, I'll take a 1-month vacation. Or here's another one I've heard. Hey, I'm going to incorporate offshore in the British Virgin Islands or the Bahamas or Belize or wherever else. Please don't incorporate in Belize. And I'm going to stay living where I am, but I'll go to Belize once a year. I'll have the board meeting, and hey, that's where the business is being conducted, so the company will be taxed in Belize. You see this with a lot of these guys online who they promote offshore companies, and they do this kind of sleight of hand, if you call them, where it's like, oh no, we don't have any taxes. No, there's no taxes. Oh, you can do whatever you want. Oh, there's no capital controls. Well, yeah, that's great, but where you're living, where the business is operating, that's what's going to set the standard a lot more. And so you need to make a substantial commitment to spend a substantial amount of time outside of your country. If you're an American, being in Puerto Rico, or again, going overseas to another country. If you are from any other country, that means moving to another country. Right? You need to get out of your country. And so people look at this as a time-based approach. The thing that we've told you about many times is the 183-day rule, which is still oft recited, where, hey, as long as I spend less than 6 months in my country, I'm good. Now, there may be some cases where in certain countries, all that matters is the days test, and you can pretty much thread the needle where you're there just under 6 months. There may be certain cases where you're not a resident or citizen of a certain country and you're spending a good amount of time there, and the days test may be the prevailing test. Now, let me be clear, none of this is tax advice. Not only because it's not tax advice, but because there's so many different possible situations. But if you are moving out of a country, let's say you're Canadian, and you've been living in Canada, and you're a Canadian citizen, believe me, you're going to be subject to more than simply a days test. If you spend 182 days back in Canada, in most situations that we see in our business, you're still going to be stuck. Most countries now have a number of factors. Where's your job? Where's your business? Where's your source of income? Do you have retirement accounts? Where's your family? What are your primary ties, secondary ties? Different countries have different names for these things, but they're going to look at the whole totality of your existence. And so when I say scorched earth, I mean you're basically burning everything to the ground. You are slashing and burning. You no longer own a house. You no longer rent a house. There's a whole bunch of ties that go through, down to the really kind of small ties. I mean, in one case, there was a court case where a guy failed to cancel the rent on his boat slip in the marina. He took the boat, but kept paying the rent on the place to park the boat. Years later, the tax man came and said, well, wait a second, you must be coming back. You're still paying rent to park your boat here, right? You probably, it doesn't seem like you left. Right? And so they went back and they assessed tax. That's why doing the tax planning when you leave your country is so important. For so long, you've seen, led by a movement of digital nomads, hey, just leave the country and all's cool. No, you want to do exit planning. You want things properly documented. You want a full package, which is why we work with various lawyers and accountants here to do that for our clients. But the idea of scorched earth is basically eliminating any of the doubt that you have left, because here's what I see people doing. Here's the mistake that I see people making, is that people want to maintain their ties to the country. It's the reason why they say, hey, we were going to spend 3 months in Spain in the summer anyway. Can we use that as a way to reduce our taxes? Like, hey, can we reduce it to 25%? We're not there. No, because your tax home is still in the country where you're living the other 9 months of the year, where you have all of your ties, the things that you want to go scorched earth on potentially if you want to get out. And so what you'll hear people do is, hey, I'm going to move to Puerto Rico, but I'm going to like get a fishing boat and I'm going to like go to some other island and then get out from there. That's a dumb idea. Remember what we say in the beginning of every episode? Legally, go where you're treated best. I'm not here to play games. I'm not here to encourage you playing games. There are ways to do this. I don't want to help you do it the wrong way. I just don't. And so that's why they call me the goody two-shoes of the offshore world. But if you want to demonstrate that you've left, I think the most important thing you can do is to adjust your mindset to I'm leaving. Not to, okay, this is really our home, but how many days do we put in over there, and how do we do the bare minimum? Because when you're planning on doing the bare minimum, when you're taking the exact opposite of the scorched earth approach, you're going to trip up. Because one of the things that a lot of Western countries look at is your intent. They look at your fact pattern. They look at, what does your life look like? And if you're kind of, half-heartedly living in some other country for, the bare minimum number of days, and you don't really have anything set up there, and it's like if you were really living somewhere, right, where would your doctor be? In the place you're really living, or in the place you're not really living? Now, I'm not saying that if you're nomadic, if you leave the lifestyle that I live, where I live in different jurisdictions, hey, my doctor can be in a place where I don't spend my time. But my doctor's not in the country that I claim that I'm leaving and that I don't want to pay tax in anymore. My doctor might be in Dubai, and I have gotten medical care in Dubai. I've gotten medical care in Mexico. I have doctors that I have around the world, especially in Malaysia, who take care of me. I'm not leaving that country and claiming, hey, I don't live here anymore, right? If you were putting in the bare minimum in a new country, that's going to potentially cause you to trip up, either on the strategic side, or it's just going to cause you to develop a fact pattern where you're not really there. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to change your mindset. You want to realize that there are multiple tests, right? And so you want to be looking at making a decision. If you're single, easy. If you're a married couple, hopefully you're in on it together. If you're a family, really hope you're in on it together. And so understand that the more connections that you maintain to an old country, just in a general context, just speaking about all the tax systems in the world that we've seen, the more connections that you have to that old country, whether it's time spent there or any of the other things that bind you to it, then that's going to be more likely that you are going to have a tax problem. And so if you're trying to spend as much time in your current home country as possible, hey, nothing against that, and you can figure out through proper exit tax planning how long can you spend in your country and get away with that. But again, it needs to be more on the basis of, I don't live here anymore, I'm just coming back and visiting, right? I mean, for Americans, it could be as little as a month, it could be a couple months a year, depending on your situation and where you're going. It could be, as much as 5 months a year potentially on your situation. So if you're an American, you've got opportunities to move, and you can come back for 3 to 4 weeks up to 5 months, something like that. But again, it's going to depend on not just the time, it's going to depend on what is the fact pattern and where you've left and where you're moving. And so my idea of scorched earth is making it an easier fact pattern, right? When I go to Canada, it's pretty clear I'm a tourist. If I were to visit Canada, I would stay in a hotel, I'd rent a car, I would not act as in any way as if I'm living there. I wouldn't open a self-storage unit. I mean, I wouldn't do anything that makes me tie down to Canada. It's pretty clear, hey, I'm a tourist, and so therefore I'm going to have more flexibility than you, the person who's been living in Canada your entire life has, in many cases. So understand that the more scorched earth you go, the more flexibility you may have. Again, just in the aggregate, talking across all the different countries that we've seen, that's what you're going to have. And so if you can cut your ties, understanding that in most cases, you can come back, right? Now, if you're an American and you expatriate and you give up your citizenship, well, then you can't come back and live in the United States. You've gotten rid of that option. You may be able to come back on a tourist visa or some kind of other visa. You may be able to get a green card in the future and come back. I mean, you're treated the same way as any other foreigner, depending on your passport, right? So that's really the only reason why you wouldn't be able to come back. Certainly, someone who wants to leave their country for like a year, that may be frowned upon in some countries where they're like, well, but you only left for a year. That doesn't really count, right? So that could be an issue. But if you go and you decide 5 years from now, you know what, this isn't for me anymore, you really haven't lost anything. You can come back to your country and you can reestablish the stuff that you went scorched earth on. So without getting into specific tax advice or discussing specific countries, since people watch this all around the world, the idea is how many things that you are connected with in the country you live now are you willing to part with, are you willing to cancel? People call us from Canada, they say, I don't feel comfortable with my money in Canadian bank accounts after what happened recently, where they froze people's bank accounts, right? Okay, well, then the idea of not having a bank account shouldn't be that difficult for you, right? And people think, oh, well, that's the only thing I need to do. No, I mean, in some cases, there are dozens or even 100 ties that you need to evaluate, and you want to go through that and make those changes. And then you want to figure out where you're moving in a new country, and you want to figure out what you're going to set up there. And obviously, if you're moving to a country, let's say you're moving to Mexico, Mexico may not be the best country to bank in, so you've got to figure out, well, how am I going to make sure that I'm out of my old country and into Mexico, even though I don't want to bank in Mexico because I don't want the cartels to come after me if I put too much money in my account. So these are the kinds of discussions that you need to have. But if you ask yourself, can I go scorched earth? What am I willing to get rid of? That's going to start to put you in the right mindset, and that's going to start you in the strategic path of thinking how you can ideally cut your tax ties with your home country, because they are getting more difficult, especially in Western countries and especially in the English-speaking Western countries. They are making it harder to get out. It's not just a matter of, oh, I left and you won't see me again. That's not going to work. If you want some help with this, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com, and you want to start building your plan to go where you're treated best. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.